You ever see something that just works? Like it grows and gets bigger and somehow just keeps getting better? And then you've seen the opposite, right? Things that completely fall apart the second they try to scale. Well, it turns out there's a hidden reason for that, a kind of secret logic, and we're going to unpack it, starting with a problem I think we've all run into. So let's jump right in and talk about the scaling trap. This is that universal headache of trying to make things work when they get big, and it trips up everyone, from engineers to artists to managers. Okay, picture this. You've got a great idea. It works flawlessly when it's small. You and a couple of friends, you're crushing it. But the moment you try to expand, it all just grinds to a halt. Why? Why do our best plans seem to shatter when they grow? Well, just look at this. With 5 components, coordination is a breeze. But when you get to 500, it's just chaos. The sheer effort of keeping everyone on the same page becomes so overwhelming that nothing actually gets done. We're seeing this right now with AI agent teams. You'd think adding more agents would make it faster, but often it does the exact opposite. So, what is going on here? Here's the culprit. It's a concept called serial dependencies. Fancy term, simple idea. It's just any point where one part of the system has to stop and wait for another part. And the problem is, these waiting points don't just add up, they multiply. Pretty soon the whole system is spending all its time just managing itself instead of doing any real work. So what's the fix? Well, this is where it gets weird. The solution feels totally backwards. Instead of trying to get everyone to communicate better, you do the opposite. You make the individual workers dumber. You isolate them. You make them completely unaware of the bigger picture. They just do their one simple job. I know, it sounds crazy, but this is what actually works. And this is where things get really cool, because this isn't just a software trick. This same exact principle shows up in the most unexpected places, from Shakespeare to the way modern music is made. You've got to stick with me here, because I promise it all connects. Think about Hamlet. We're all taught that his big flaw is that he can't make a decision, right? But what if that's not a flaw? What if it's a feature? See, everyone else around him is acting based on these simple ideas of honor and revenge. But Hamlet sees everything. He sees all the complexity, all the consequences. He can't act because he knows too much. So Hamlet's problem isn't a lack of data. It's an overload. And believe it or not, this is a real problem in AI right now. It's called context pollution. When an AI runs for too long and accumulates too much information, it gets confused. Its focus gets diluted, and it starts making bad decisions. It literally needs a reboot to clear its head. Okay, one more weird puzzle. Ambient music. You hear those incredibly complex, beautiful soundscapes, and you think it must be made with super advanced tools, right? Nope. It's the opposite. It's made with dead simple components, like basic sine waves, that are heavily restricted. The magic, the complexity, doesn't come from the pieces themselves. It emerges from how those simple pieces are put together. So, we have overwhelmed AI teams, a prince who can't make a decision, and electronic music. What on earth is the common thread here? Well, this is the big reveal. This is the aha moment. This is the whole thing, right here. Simple components, sophisticated orchestration. The secret to building anything that can scale, whether it's a company, a piece of software, or even your own understanding, is to keep the individual parts simple and put all the intelligence into the system that directs them. And you can just see the pattern laid out perfectly. For the AI, the simple component is the isolated worker, and the sophisticated orchestration is the planner handing out tasks. For Hamlet, the simple action required the orchestration of what Nietzsche called a veil of illusion. And for the music, the simple sine wave is orchestrated by all the external effects and mixing. It is the exact same logic every single time. Okay, so this is a really powerful idea. But so what? How do we actually apply it? This leads us to what I think is a massive problem, a huge skills gap that I call the missing middle. Just get a load of this statistic. In most big companies, after the first wave of training, a full 80% of AI software licenses just go dormant. They sit there, unused. People try the tools, get kind of mediocre results, and then just go right back to the old way of doing things. What is going on? Well, the problem is we only ever teach the 101 level, the basics. Click this button, type here. We almost never teach the 201 level. And that's where the magic is. That's the applied judgment. It's the difference between asking, how do I use the tool, and asking, Where does this tool actually help, and how can I tell if what it's giving me is any good? The funny thing is, the real skills you need to succeed with AI have almost nothing to do with coding. They're management skills. You have to learn to treat the AI like a brilliant, super fast intern who has zero experience. You have to break tasks down for it, you have to constantly check its work, and you have to know when to trust it and when to tell it to try again. Now let's take this idea and scale it up one last time, all the way up. Because this principle doesn't just apply to our jobs or our software, it applies to how our entire society works or doesn't work. Let's go back to Shakespeare. In Romeo and Juliet, the real problem isn't a family feud. It's a failure of orchestration. The prince is weak. He makes threats, but there's no real system of justice. So what happens? In that vacuum, people fall back on their own simple, destructive little systems, personal honor, revenge, and the whole thing spirals into a total catastrophe. And this is why it's so dangerous when you see attacks on core institutions, like the courts or the press. The point of those attacks usually isn't to argue about a specific fact. The real goal is to damage society's orchestration layer, the very system we rely on to figure out what's true. When that system breaks, we can't agree on reality anymore. So, to be an effective person in this crazy world, you need what we might call a 201 level of citizenship. And here's the absolute wildest part. The skills are the exact same ones you need to be good with AI. It's about taking in a ton of noise and assembling the real context. It's about judging the quality of information. It's about breaking down huge problems into smaller pieces.
Okay, so where does all this leave you and me? What are we supposed to do with all this? It really all comes down to finding and doing your own 201 level work.
So I want to give you a practical tool. Think of this like a snap-to-grid function for your brain. Before you jump to a conclusion about something you read or hear, just quickly run it through these 4 questions. It's a simple way to force yourself to build a real judgment instead of just having a knee-jerk reaction. Because this is the big takeaway. That 201 level, that messy, difficult, missing middle of applied judgment, that is where all the value is. It's the only thing that allows teams or tools or whole societies to actually scale up their potential. And here's the kicker, nobody else can do that work for you. So I'll leave you with this one last question to think about. In your job, in your community, in your own life, what is the messy, essential 201 level work that's just sitting there waiting for someone to do it? Because finding the answer to that, that's probably where you're going to make your biggest impact.